Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second half of the Jake Jackson podcast episode. Welcome back.
Happy to be back.
Good. So, as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, it hasn't been a week for us, but it has been for you. Thank you very much for coming back on all these 5 minutes later. Last episode, obviously, we started talking about your Survive 5 in 85. We got 2 into it. And we were just about to start 3, I think.
That's right, yeah.
Right.
Number 3.
So if you haven't listened to the first part of the episode, go back. That will be episode 73, I believe. As long as we don't have any hiccups with the corrupt files again. And yeah, so let's get cracking. So you survived the first 2 gold medals, as was assumed, I assume.
Yes. 2 great races.
Did you set the course record for the second one?
I did, yes. Okay. That one was, I think, about an hour course record. So, yeah.
Wow. A considerable... That's quite a chunk, isn't it?
Yeah. I can't remember who had that course record, but I want to say it was the same guy that had the first race. So, yeah. Really, he's a really great runner, too. Yeah, he ended up having course records for both of those races, and I just edged him out.
You just keep scrubbing him off the board at each race. Right, so race 3 then. Where were we in the world for that?
So race 3, that one was about, I think, 5 weeks after race number 2. So I did have a little bit more time to get fully recovered, and I actually did get in a fairly good bit of training in between. Nothing intense with speed work or anything, but I was able to ratchet up my miles pretty close to 100-mile weeks, I think, at least one of those weeks. So came into the third race, which is called Nanny Goat. It is also a looped race on a 1 mile. It goes through a horse ranch. This is a race that is about 30-minute drive from our house. I have run this race several times. This was actually the first of the 5 that I was for sure going to do this year. So morning start, I think it starts around 8 o'clock. And yeah, I had my wife and our oldest son. They were going to do the 6-hour race. So it was a bit of a family affair out there. So
nice. So how long has your lad been getting into it then?
He ran all through high school, cross country and track. I don't think he has the desire that my wife and I do for the longer stuff. It was more of a social outlet for him during school. And I think he kind of wanted to see how far he could go. He wanted to see if he could actually run some of these longer distances. And he's come out to several of my races at Nanny Goat. So he was familiar with the course and kind of knew what to expect going into it. So
yeah, I mean, 6 hours of running is no, it's no short feat, is it?
No, I mean, I think the longest that they ran in high school was about 8 or 9 miles. So he had built up and ran his first half marathon in March, and I constructed a training plan for him. So we were going out on the weekends and, getting the miles in, and he's, took it nice and easy and built his miles up leading up to the 6-hour race. So, yeah.
Nice. So your recovery, obviously you said you had 5 weeks between race 2 and 3. Did you do the same sort of stuff for your recovery? So you eliminated carbs for the first few days?
I did, yes. Same result, yes.
Okay.
I was able to get back to running quite a bit faster. And another thing that I not mentioned is that I was doing a lot of sauna training in between the races. I mean, I know there's a lot of science with longevity and such. And, it was one of those things that I knew that I was probably going to need to get better at heat acclimation leading into the summer months. So it's something I just started a little bit early. And I just really enjoyed getting in the sauna and sweating it out for a half an hour or whatever. And I think it did help with some of the recovery aspect too, just getting that sweat out, giving your muscles a chance to recover a little bit too.
Yeah, I'm a massive proponent of the sauna. I try to get in there at least sort of 4 times a week, and I do 20-minute sessions each time I go. But yeah, and I see a massive difference, especially after my weight training. Like if I have, say, a leg day or stuff like that, like it, if I don't have time for the sauna or whatever, the following day, 2 days after, I can really feel it in my legs. But like
Right.
today, I did legs. I did 20 minutes in the sauna, and I feel all right. I mean, I'm probably not ready for a run, but yeah, I can walk about all right. I don't look like I've shit myself or anything like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel a massive benefit from it. I mean, I'm not a sciencey guy, but like the heat shock proteins and stuff like that, like the release in and stuff. And I don't tend to use the cold, like they've got cold showers and stuff at my gym.
Hmm.
I don't tend to go in them after workout because of the high. There's again, I'm not sciencey.
Yeah.
There from some of the research that I've read, it's like slows down your like recovery rate and like your protein release for the muscles to sort
Okay.
of build. And obviously for me, I want to get not massive, but I want to get a bit bigger. But yeah, for me, yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of Scandinavian countries, I mean, they start doing it when they're real young,
Right.
and their all cause mortality is a lot less than
Yeah.
like us
I
in
I
England.
did jump into the ice plunge world a little bit as well. I ended up buying it's 100-gallon stock feeder,
Yeah,
basically for farm animals or whatever, and using that quite a bit in the recovery phase too. It's a little bit harder to do it now because it's so warm out and the water's lukewarm when I get in most of the time, and the ice is not cheap. So yeah, I
yeah,
was doing that quite a bit in the March, April, May months. Yeah. And it was
yeah.
just another I guess tool, I guess, that I was using to help mentally be a little bit stronger because it's not fun at all getting
No,
in cold water. So yeah.
no, not at all. I mean, I do it now. I do it with my bath. I don't really use my bath. I don't take baths. So I usually fill that up twice a week with water, and then I again because of I eat mostly fresh food.
Mhm.
I don't really use my freezer, so I've got a load of 1.5 litre bottles that I filled up, freeze them, and then I chuck them in the night before,
There you go.
and it
Yeah.
usually gets it down to sort of about 5 degrees Celsius, which
Okay.
I'm not sure what it is in yours.
Neither do I. Yeah.
I think it's in the like 30s, maybe high
Okay.
30s or
Yeah,
so.
that's definitely cold.
So yeah, I try to get in that. Well, I do get in that every single day, especially during the working week, because that's sort of my coffee.
Okay.
I don't have any caffeine in the mornings now, so I get up 3 minutes in there, and I am good for the day. To be honest, it doesn't really matter what the weather's doing outside because I'm already chilled pretty much to the
Right.
bone. And yeah, that sort of sets me up. But I always do my cold plunge as soon as I wake up, rather than sort of any time in the day or after my sort of workouts. And I use the heat to, the heat shock proteins and all that sort of stuff. And like I say, like I've felt a massive benefit from it, and I can train every day of the week. Really, I don't seem to have any sort of depletion of energy or anything like that. Especially if I stick to my diet. Again, like you said yourself, when you're eating stuff and you know what you're eating. You're like, no, this is probably not going to help tomorrow. You still do it though.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the same with me. I've sort of fine tuned mine just to I've eaten and I'll up, what I'm eating of certain things and down and move just, and shuffle it all around just so that I know how I feel with it. And I've got it to a nice area now. So race 3, smashed it.
Yeah, that one went really well too. I've gotten really I won't say good at running these flat races, but it's kind of in my wheelhouse. It's something that it's easy to train on. We don't live we're about an hour drive from any of the big mountains close by, so I typically run on the roads mostly or the flatter trails. So yeah, that one was a lot of fun too because I had my friend Tim come out he was the current course record holder for the 100 mile, and he came out and paced me for about I think it was about 50K at the end of the race, and he helped me break his own course record. And
That's nice of him.
just that's one of the beautiful things about ultra running is that the community will come out and we'll help each other, even if it's going to take away a course record or a win from somebody else, or from the person that's helping you. It's a lot of fun. And like I had said, my wife and son were out there for about 6 hours. And so it was great having them around. And yeah, it's just a really good time. I would say these first three races were by far the easiest of the five. I mean, they're never easy. You know, you're always struggling at the end. But in terms of, they were the ones I was most ready for, I guess.
So when you're running your 100-mile race, you said it was on a 1 mile loop.
This one's a 1 mile loop, yes.
So in them 6 hours, then you're seeing the missus and your lad quite a bit, I would imagine.
Right. Yeah.
Who's going past who though?
I'm passing them. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And my son, he's pretty fast. You know, the shorter distances, he could probably beat me most times. So we were having to remind him, don't do dad's pace. Do your own pace. You know, because
when you say shorter distances, your shorter distances and my shorter distances are probably not the same. So what are we saying he sort of beats you over?
800-meter, maybe
right,
mile races, stuff like that. Except that he ran in high school. He has quite a bit more. What do they call them? Fast twitch fiber muscles.
Fast twitch fiber, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So.
So yeah, that one. I don't know. Go ahead.
Go on. No.
I was just going to say that one. Like I was saying, all of these races, I knew I was not going to be running at 100%. You know, it was always in the back of my mind that you need to finish these things and be able to get recovered and get ready for the next one. And that was kind of the whole gist of all five of these races, was not only just to survive, but you want to be able to, you know, recover in enough time in between. Yeah. But I also didn't want to, that's where the whole 85 hours came in. I didn't want to just walk them in every single race. Yeah, I could have finished all five of these and then they could have taken me, you know, 20 hours for each one and I could have walked them all. But the fact that, especially these first three races, I went into them knowing that there probably wasn't going to be anybody that I was quote unquote racing. So I needed something, a carrot to keep me moving at the end of these races. Because sometimes, you know, when you know you're going to win or you know you're going to surpass your goal, you tend to slack off, you slow down. And I needed something to keep me motivated towards the end of these races that keep me going.
So obviously you're 5 in 85. Is there any part of you that next year maybe wants to lower that target?
Well, it's interesting because when I very first started the challenge, I was debating on making it 80 hours, which would have been, I think, 16 hours or something. But after the fifth one, I was really glad that I didn't make it because I would not have made it. The last two had taken so much more out of me than the first three did. So yeah, probably if I could do maybe 5 flat races, I would consider lowering that time a little bit. But I knew the last two, because they were on trail, had a lot more climbing and elevation gain, that I was going to go significantly slower.
So race 4.
What
was your sort of time between the two races?
That one was the shortest time. It was only 2 weeks. And I knew this was going to be the make or break race for me. And the fact that I had only done very limited amount of training up in the mountains. The fourth race at Cool Moon 100, it has about 12 to 13,000 feet of climbing. It is a looped course. Technically, it has a north loop and a south loop that we would do 4 times each. So you basically come back to your main aid station in the middle, and they would have aid stations set up along each one of the loops. This race was probably the biggest challenge, not only because of the 2 weeks in between, but I also, that weekend in between, my father had unfortunately passed away. So we were going through a little bit of grief and having to take care of all of that situation. And I was just not in a really great headspace leading into that fourth race. And there was a short period where I thought, maybe I just don't even want to do this. Maybe there's no point in doing this anymore. My dad and I weren't super close, but I was able to go out to see him before he passed, which was really nice. Put a little closure in. And I just made a decision that if I was going to do this, keep going on with the challenge, that I was going to run this last race in his honor, basically. And that was going to be the thing that motivated me in those late miles when it was really difficult, because he had been going through a difficult time too. And so uh, after the weekend prior, I had made a decision that I wasn't going to go out and race it. I unfortunately came down with a head cold. I don't know if it was from being in the hospital, in the cold hospital or not, but I had a really bad head cold. So the drive out to cool California was about an 8-hour drive. And I was basically sipping on Dayquil to keep the cold symptoms away. So I had that as a challenge as well. So yeah, that race, I had never run on this trail. So I had really no idea what to expect, which was a little bit challenging, but so that one, I think that one started fairly early, 5 o'clock in the morning. I was going to have a couple friends come out about midway through the race to crew and pace me. So I ran the first 30 or so miles by myself, unsupported. And yeah, the head cold, it really took a lot out of me. By mile 50, I was pretty much ready to throw in the towel. Um, had a really bad fever, and I just did not think I was going to be able to continue.
Once you've got to mile 50, are you not then just rolling it down? You're like, right, 50 done, 50 to go, 49 to go, 48 to go, 47 to go.
Yeah, I think if I had had those feelings a little bit earlier in the race, I probably would have pulled the plug. But I think, coming into 50, halfway done, the crew was there. I was going to have some pacers. And the thing that really kept me going is just the simple fact of, if I quit, like, this whole challenge is done.
Hmm.
It's over. There will be no fifth race. I would have done the fifth race regardless, but there would have been no completing the challenge. And that just did not sit well with me. I was still able to move. I was physically capable. Mentally, I was done for, but I just said, I got to keep going. I have to finish this thing, even if I walk the rest of the way. And the crew was there, and they were willing to just do whatever I needed them to do to get me to the finish. So that's what kept me going.
How do you build on that mental toughness? Like, how do you get more mentally tough?
I
Or,
think, people ask me that a lot. And I think a lot of it just comes from past experiences. You do hard things. The next time you're in that situation, in your mind, that you've been through this before. And that was a large part of why I wanted to do these 5 races. I wanted to finish them all and be a little bit more mentally tough for some of the races that I have planned later on in the year. Um, that was the genesis of why I wanted to do these 5. I'd finished a couple races last year at the end, and I just didn't feel like I had that mental toughness anymore. I don't know what was the cause of that. If I had lost it, if maybe I hadn't been doing things mentally challenging enough to progress. But I think, I don't think if you grow up a spoiled kid, you don't gain those mental toughness. It's usually the ones who go through hard times who do really well in some of these races. I think that's why, a lot of ultra running, the people who gravitate towards ultra running are people who were addicted to substances, or, just had hard childhood, and they're just mentally tougher, and that's what gets them through a lot of these races towards the end.
you've touched on obviously addiction and the childhood. Would you like to expand on if that was for you? If that was part of your
I would not say that I had a very hard upbringing. My parents divorced when I was a teenager, and looking back, I don't think that had really had much of an impact on me. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, who knows. I think a lot of where I draw my strength from, I'm a truck driver at UPS. Um, I have a pretty cush job now, but when I very first started at UPS, it's a lot of long hours working graveyard shift in a trailer that's miserably hot, and you're basically doing the same job for hours on end. And that I think is where I draw a lot of the initial mental toughness with what am able to do now.
Yeah. I only asked about that obviously because I'm the same. Like I grew up, I would say quite privileged to be honest. Especially talking to some of the guests that I've had on. Like the comparison is night and day.
Right.
Both my parents loved me. Same with me. My parents split up, but I'd already left home. I'd already joined the military before they split up. So again, it didn't really affect me, growing up. But for me, as I said, obviously I joined the military. I've put myself in situations that have made it so I've had to, lace up the boots and get on with it. Like I put myself in the sticky situations that then have thinking. But when anyone that knows me, the 3 listeners that I've got on this, they'll know that I am, I'm very sort of headstrong. If I set my mind to something, I will do it by hook or by crook. And that's sort of how I do. And like I said, I want to do an ultra marathon. So sometime between now and when I cannot run, it will be done. I don't know when it will be done. I don't know, when I'll have that change of heart of not wanting to lift weights all the time and do it, or I might do it, in conjunction with that. But yeah, I don't sort of shy away from any goals. If someone messages me now and said, do you want to do, X, Y, Z, I'll put it in. I'll be like, weigh up the options. Yep, let's do it. It'd never be like, I don't think I'd be able to do it.
Right.
Because if someone can do it, I believe that I can do it.
Yeah. I mean, I hate to promote like the David Goggins approach to doing a lot of these things because I think a lot of what he does might not be the smartest way to go about doing them. But
Definitely
it's
not.
it's very much the same mentality. You do hard things and the harder things will get easier. There's just no way around it. If you never push yourself into situations where you have to overcome adversity, you just never will. You will always cave in. And I
Yeah.
think that's another reason why people are drawn to doing ultra marathons. Beyond, I mean, running a marathon is hard, but I think you get to a point much the same way that I did, where you're looking for something that's like, I need something that's harder than this. And that's where ultra running comes into my life, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's the same. I mean, there's been, a few people that I come across on Instagram. They're running like a marathon a day,
Right.
for, set time, set amount of days and all stuff like that. So we've got off piece a little bit from your
A little bit.
5 and
okay.
8 5. So let's bring us back. So 4 went well. Oh well, you completed it.
I got it done. Yes.
Yeah, not as well as the other ones. What was your time that you came in at? For
that one, let's see, it was 19 hours 25 minutes.
Okay, so you had up a bit of your time.
But I did set the course record in that one too by 2 hours this time.
Okay, right. So
yeah.
So you've had obviously, with your dad and stuff like that, and you said that it was hard and all the rest of it, and yet you've broke the course record by an hour. What had you been in a headspace that would have benefited for the race, and you would have been set on it? How much more time do you think you could have taken off?
Yeah, that's hard to say. I mean, if I had been just training for that one race, obviously I probably could have run it. I would maybe an hour and a half faster. The first 20 miles that I had ran, I looked back at my splits, my stats from that race, and I was on a very, very good pace. And it wasn't until the head cold and some of the muscle fatigue from running 100 miles 2 weeks earlier sat in. Yeah, I mean, I was very surprised with that finish time. The way I felt, that second 50 miles. I mean, it got to the point where I had to get out my trekking poles to get up some of those climbs. And I don't ever use trekking poles. I'm glad I brought them, but yeah, some of the climbs, especially the last two loops, were very slow, very hard. And thankfully, I did have some really good friends who were out there to pull me along and get me to the finish time with that time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. So obviously you finished 4, broke the course record. 5. How did that go, and how long recovery did you have?
So number 5, that would be Burning River 100 out in Ohio, like I mentioned earlier. That one had, I think it was 6 weeks in between. So the biggest gap in between the races, which was definitely something I needed after the last race at Cool Moon. Took a little bit longer of a break off running for that one. I got on my bike quite a bit more, and just basically took the mental time that I needed to get ready for this one. My wife and I were going to fly out there a day early, and Ohio, I don't know if you've ever been to Ohio. It's very humid, very,
Right.
very humid. That was the thing that we were hearing. Be ready for the humidity. And going back to the sauna training, I had upped going to the sauna to get a little bit more heat acclimated before the race. And so I felt that I was ready to deal with that heat. Um, we flew out there. Training in between went very good. I was able to get some big mile weeks in, and felt pretty confident that I was 100% again. Flew out there, and we had seen that there was going to be a big storm rolling through. We were hoping it was going to hit the day before the race, uh, and it didn't. It stayed pretty dry. It was definitely humid. My race started at 4 a.m. and basically when the gun started, it rained for 5 hours straight. And we're talking like thunderstorms, lightning, everything. It was crazy. I'd never run a race that had that much like rain come down. So right off the get go is going to be a difficult, long day.
Yeah. So how does that change your, the way you're running, your speed, anything like that? Do you adapt to that, slow it down for that time, or are you just pushing through?
Yeah, I definitely slowed things down. The trails got very muddy very quickly. I had heard reports that if it does rain, that the water does not soak into the ground. It basically turns the trails to mud, and that happened really quick. The cool thing about this race is that it's a 50-mile out and then a 50-mile back. So you'd be running on the same trails both ways. It goes through several parks, several cities. So you're basically going from roads for a few miles onto trail where you're climbing and descending, running across grassy areas. It had a variation of everything. It was about 30 miles of road altogether. So there was quite a bit of flat, dry areas to run through. But yeah, that one I did not have a crew for. So getting in and out of the aid stations was quite a bit slower. And I knew that this race, out of all the 5, there was going to be a lot more competition. So I did start out up in the front, and there was a group of about 5 of us that ran pretty close together for a large part of the beginning of the race. So that was definitely a challenge. But yeah, just definitely slowing down. About 18 miles into the race, I had tripped and fell and scraped up my knee pretty bad in my hand. And I thought, wow, we're only 18 miles into this thing and I'm already banged up. So it definitely was not starting the way I wanted it to start. So.
No, definitely not ideal. So talk us through then. Obviously, so once you've hit sort of you've done your first 50, you're on your back end of your 50. Do you know your time at that 50-mile point?
I think it was about 8 hours in by that point, 7 or 8 hours, something like that. Yeah.
So at that point, you're looking, you know what time you need to come in at for your 5 and 85.
Right.
When are you, sort of almost this is this is doable. I'm going to achieve this.
I don't think there was any point during that race that I didn't think I was not going to finish. I had about a 19-hour window to finish under my 85 hours. And once I did reach the halfway point, I knew exactly what I was going to be looking at on the way back because I had just run it. Yeah. So it was just a matter of just staying with a consistent pace, running as much as I could, and then just being just very careful with the mud, because the mud on the way back, when you have 500 people running across dirt, it was sloppy. It was very hard to get through. So I was making sure to walk if I needed to. Last thing I needed to do was take a step and twist an ankle or something. So, and by this point, I was in about fourth place. Well, actually third place before I picked up a pacer, a friend that I had known previously that came out to pace me the last 30 miles. So we were just a lot of just catching up, keeping our minds what was going on in front of us, making sure we were not stepping anywhere we shouldn't have stepped. And yeah, we just clicked off the miles. So it was a lot of fun just having somebody to run with that, last third of the race.
Yeah. I mean, your idea of fun and my idea of fun are two completely different things.
Yeah.
But I'm glad there's people like you in the world, because it makes me want to want to push myself more and want to achieve more. So we just on that. So 5. I'm assuming you came inside the 19 hours.
I did. I finished that one in 17:46. So I had about an hour and a half cushion after. So I was really happy.
Good. And how did you fare in that race? Where did you place?
That one I placed fourth. We had somebody pass me about 13 miles to the finish. My legs were just gone. Running through the mud, it took a lot out of me. And the weird thing about the race is I literally was soaked wet the entire 17, 18 hours. Anytime the sun came out, it was just humid. So there was no reprieve from being wet and just soaked the entire time.
Yeah. And also, I didn't ask, races 4 and 5, were they sort of more competitive races? I'm assuming obviously the last one was, because
the race number 4, Cool Moon, that one wasn't as competitive. There were some people who were supposed to run the race that I thought were going to be up there with me, but they did not end up coming. But the last one definitely was a lot more competitive. I mean, the winner of that race, I think he did it 2 hours faster than I did. So yeah, quite a bit more competitive.
Crikey. Well, I ask everyone this question that comes on, and I'm very intrigued to hear your answer for the second time. Would you just like to give anyone some advice on, getting into ultra running, life advice, or anything like that?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I've taken out of ultra running is not just the community aspect to it, is that you can have fun. There's a lot of fun to be had with running. Most people see running and think that's the last thing I want to do. But especially with the trail running, I mean, the places that I've gotten to see just on my own 2 feet, I would never give any of that up for the world. I mean, and when you get to do it with your friends and go out and explore areas that you never thought you'd be able to explore, it's just amazing. And I think that's been the one thing that I've enjoyed most about being a runner, being an ultra runner, is going and experiences different places that most people in the world will never get to see, or don't even know that's even there for them to see.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast, Jake.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
For the second time. Do you want to give everyone your social media handles?
Yeah, Instagram is at Ultra Jake Jackson. I am on Facebook and Strava too, just under Jake Jackson. So
brilliant. Well, like I say, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Have you got any last thoughts?
I don't know. Go have fun. Go explore. Get outside. There's a big world out there, and you never know what's out there until you go out and look for it.
Definitely. Right. Well, on that note, Thank you for listening, everybody.